Hey everyone, Linus here, and today we're diving deep into the belly of the beast, the motherboard. This crucial component is often overlooked, but it's the backbone of your entire system. It's the central nervous system of your computer, connecting all the vital components from the CPU to the RAM and everything in between. When it goes down, your whole system goes down with it. No power, no boot, no nothing. But don't hit the panic button just yet. Take a deep breath and stay calm. Often, a dead motherboard isn't dead at all, just needs a little TLC. Sometimes, it's just a minor issue that can be easily fixed. Before we break out the toolkit, let's understand why your motherboard might be throwing a tantrum. Knowledge is power after all. It could be a power supply issue, a faulty component, or even a damaged capacitor. Or it could be something as simple as a loose connection. These things happen more often than you'd think. We'll walk you through the steps to identify and hopefully fix the problem. Step by step, we'll get to the bottom of it. Remember, troubleshooting is like detective work. It's all about patience and attention to detail. We need to gather clues, eliminate suspects, and ultimately pinpoint the culprit. It's a process of elimination. So, put on your detective hats, grab your magnifying glass, or maybe just a flashlight, and let's get started. Together, we'll solve this mystery and get your system back up and running. Before we even think about touching those precious components, safety is paramount. Electricity and sensitive electronics don't mix well, so let's avoid any unwanted shocks or damage. First and foremost, unplug your computer from the power outlet. It seems obvious, but you'd be surprised how many people forget this crucial step. Next, ground yourself. This means discharging any static electricity you've built up. You can do this by touching a metal part of your computer case or using an anti-static wrist strap. Static electricity can fry components, so don't skip this step. With safety measures in place, we're ready to roll up our sleeves and get our hands dirty, figuratively of course. Remember, a clean workspace is a happy workspace, so clear any clutter around your work area. The power supply unit, PSU, is like the heart of your computer, pumping life into all the components. Without it, your computer simply won't function. A faulty PSU can cause all sorts of issues, including a seemingly dead motherboard, random shutdowns, or even failure to boot. So, let's make sure it's not the culprit by performing a thorough check. First, visually inspect the PSU for any obvious signs of damage, like bulging capacitors, burnt marks, or any unusual smells. If you see anything suspicious, it's time for a replacement. Don't hesitate, as a damaged PSU can cause further harm to your system. Next, check the power cord and make sure it's securely plugged into both the PSU and the wall outlet. A loose connection can often be the simplest fix. If everything looks good visually, it's time to test the PSU's output voltage to ensure it's delivering the correct power. You can do this using a multimeter, which measures voltage, current, and resistance. It's an essential tool for any serious troubleshooting. Don't worry if you're not an electrical engineer. Using a multimeter is easier than it sounds. With a bit of practice, you'll get the hang of it. Just follow the instructions in the multimeter's manual carefully, and you'll be able to diagnose the PSU's health accurately. With the PSU cleared of suspicion, it's time to turn our attention to the motherboard itself. Lay your motherboard on a flat, anti-static surface. Now, channel your inner Sherlock Holmes and examine the motherboard for any visible damage. Look for things like burnt or discolored components, bulging capacitors, bent pins, or anything else that looks out of place. Pay close attention to the CPU socket, RAM slots, and expansion card slots, as these are common areas for problems. While you're at it, make sure all the components are properly seated. Reseat the RAM modules, graphics card, and any other expansion cards to ensure a good connection. Sometimes, a simple loose connection can cause all sorts of headaches. Section 5. Delving into BIOS. The motherboard's control panel. The BIOS, or Basic Input/Output System, is like the motherboard's control panel, acting as the intermediary between the computer's firmware and its operating system. It's a small program stored on a chip that controls the hardware during the boot process, ensuring everything runs smoothly before the operating system takes over. Accessing the BIOS can provide valuable information about your hardware and allow you to tweak certain settings, such as memory timings and voltage levels. To enter the BIOS, you'll need to press a specific key, usually Del, F2, or F10, repeatedly during the boot process. This key is often displayed briefly during startup. The exact key varies depending on your motherboard manufacturer, so, refer to your motherboard's manual for instructions. This manual can be a crucial resource for navigating the BIOS. Once in the BIOS, you can check things like the CPU temperature, fan speeds, and boot order. These settings help ensure your system runs efficiently and can be customized to your needs. You can also look for any error messages or warnings that might shed light on the problem, helping you diagnose issues before they become serious. Be careful not to change any settings unless you know what you're doing, as this could potentially cause more problems. Always make sure to document any changes you make for future reference. Section 6. Advanced troubleshooting, when the going gets tough. If you've made it this far and still haven't found the culprit, don't despair. There are still some advanced troubleshooting techniques we can try. These techniques require a bit more technical know-how, so proceed with caution. One option is to use diagnostic software. There are various free and paid programs available that can test your hardware and identify problems. These programs can often pinpoint the source of the issue more accurately than visual inspection alone. Another option is to try booting your computer with minimal hardware. This means disconnecting everything except the CPU, one stick of RAM, and the graphics card. If your computer boots successfully with minimal hardware, it suggests that one of the disconnected components is faulty. Section 7. Recap. Retracing your steps to success. Let's take a moment to recap the steps we've covered so far. First, we ensured our safety by unplugging the computer and grounding ourselves. Then, we checked the PSU for any obvious damage or voltage issues. Next, we moved on to the motherboard itself, visually inspecting it for any signs of damage or loose connections. We also explored the BIOS, looking for any error messages or clues that might help us diagnose the problem. Finally, we discussed some advanced troubleshooting techniques, such as using diagnostic software and booting with minimal hardware. By systematically working through these steps, you'll increase your chances of successfully identifying and fixing the issue. Section 8. Preventative measures. Keeping your motherboard happy. Prevention is always better than cure, so let's talk about some ways to keep your motherboard happy and healthy. First and foremost, ensure proper ventilation inside your computer case. Dust accumulation can cause overheating, which can damage components like the motherboard. Regularly clean the inside of your computer case using compressed air or a soft brush. Avoid using a vacuum cleaner, as it can generate static electricity. Also, make sure all the fans are working correctly and that the heatsink is properly seated on the CPU. Another important tip is to keep your software up to date. This includes your operating system, drivers, and BIOS. Software updates often include bug fixes and performance improvements that can help prevent issues. Section 9. Seeking expert help. Knowing when to call for backup. Troubleshooting computer hardware can be challenging, and sometimes it's best to leave it to the professionals. If you've exhausted all your troubleshooting options and still can't get your motherboard to cooperate, it might be time to seek expert help. A qualified computer technician can diagnose the problem more accurately and efficiently. They have the tools, experience, and knowledge to handle even the most complex hardware issues. Don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it. Remember, attempting to fix something beyond your skill level could potentially cause further damage and cost you more money in the long run. Knowing your limits is crucial. Section 10. Conclusion. Mastering the motherboard mystery. Troubleshooting a dead motherboard can seem like a daunting task, but it's not impossible. By following the steps outlined in this guide, you'll be well on your way to identifying and hopefully fixing the problem. Remember to prioritize safety, Be methodical in your approach, and don't be afraid to seek expert help when needed. With a little patience and perseverance, you can conquer the motherboard mystery and get your computer back up and running in no time. And hey, if all else fails, there's always the satisfaction of smashing that motherboard to bits. Just kidding. Or am I? Until next time, stay safe and happy troubleshooting.